Plastic Man, also known as Patrick O'Brien, is undoubtedly one of the creepiest members of the Justice League, and he also has some unique abilities that set him apart from other superheroes. In fact, he started his career as a criminal and only turned to the good side after a painful accident where his body was exposed to strange chemicals. As a result of this accident, Plastic Man's body underwent several changes, and he was especially known for his malleability and his shape-shifting powers. Plastic Man could also exist in a fluid state and even move his organs around his body, and he also had many interesting physiological features that made him truly invulnerable. Today, we will be exploring his anatomy in detail and tell you all about this criminal-turned-superhero known as Plastic Man. But before we get into our explanation, we do just have one very small request. If you enjoy our content, then please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is just one small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thanks. Now let's begin. How did a simple criminal turn into Plastic Man? Patrick Eel O'Brien was initially a small-time criminal who commanded a gang of underlings, and they were notoriously known for orchestrating small-scene robberies. During one such plan to rob Cole Chemical, Patrick was cornered by the police. He tried to evade capture by fleeing the scene. However, one of the officers shot at him, and Patrick ended up getting exposed to a strange acid. When he tried to escape despite his condition, Patrick was unable to move from the pain, and he soon fell unconscious. By the time he came to his senses, Patrick realized that his body didn't feel the same as it had previously, and that he could no longer exercise any control over his movements. His flesh had turned elastic, and it was even taking strange forms on its own. While Patrick was himself quite freaked out, the cops, on the other hand, as well as the gang members, were utterly terrified by his appearance, and they tried to shoot at him once again. However, Patrick ended up fleeing and then decided to commit suicide. He went to a bridge, but Woozy Winks, an old Arkham Asylum inmate, located him and talked him out of ending his life. Patrick then teamed up with Woozy to make himself more useful and use his powers to fight crime. And he even stopped his old gang from committing more robberies. When he was being interviewed by news reporters, Patrick introduced himself as Elastic Man, but he was misheard, and that's how he gained his reputation as Plastic Man. His origins were slightly altered in post-Zero Hour story arcs, where he was shot at by a security guard at Crawford Chemical Works. In this story, Patrick fell into a drum full of acid. This acid then entered his bloodstream through the gunshot wounds and turned him elastic. In this version, Patrick wore a red and yellow costume and even assisted the freedom fighters during World War II. While he was born in the early 90s, this version of Plastic Man was famous even during the modern age, and he eventually befriended Batman and became an occasional member of the Justice League. How does his shape and size alteration work? As a result of his accident, Plastic Man's body was exposed to an unknown chemical mixture that entered his bloodstream and triggered a mutagenic process. He then started existing in a fluid state, and his body was no longer solid. Instead, it existed in a state somewhere between a solid and a liquid, and he also gained complete control over his molecular structure. Due to this, Plastic Man could stretch his hands and legs to any length and size. Besides stretching his body, he could also shrink or enlarge his body to become as small as a few inches or as tall as a skyscraper. His body was highly malleable, and he could shape his body to take any position or size. He could become completely flat in order to slip under slender gaps or doors, and he could also disguise himself by changing the shape of his face, hands, or legs. He could also alter his body mass by growing or reducing a few muscles, thereby altering his strength as well. In this way, Plastic Man could change his physique according to any situation, and he was thereby regarded as one of the most powerful superheroes in the Justice League. Does Plastic Man change his color? While Plastic Man can change just about anything on his body, he seems to have some trouble changing colors. He is mostly seen in a red and yellow costume, but we have rarely spotted him sporting any other colors. As it turns out, he needs to focus immensely on his body in order to change color, and it would take him as long as a few weeks to completely change his color. If Plastic Man decides to concentrate on it fully, he can certainly change his color, but this would require a Herculean amount of energy. Moreover, it is quite impractical to spend so much energy on just changing his color, especially since he can use other ways to alter his appearance more effortlessly. Is Plastic Man nearly invulnerable and immortal? Plastic Man's malleable body enables him to withstand corrosives, concussions, and even punctures without getting injured. And he is extremely durable. He is essentially invulnerable and even resistant to high-velocity impacts that would have otherwise resulted in the death of any other regular being. Energy weapons, blasts, and even bullets can't harm him, and his durability makes it impossible for anyone to kill him. He can also gradually heal his body in case of any injuries, but there is also a chance that he might be killed if his body is entirely destroyed or damaged without any scope of healing. However, this hasn't happened so far, and he has always managed to reconstitute and bounce back after being defeated on several occasions. In fact, his body was once even splintered and scattered all over the ocean floor for several thousands of years while he was on a time-traveling mission. While the incident could have killed most supernatural beings, Plastic Man, on the other hand, was able to heal gradually and return to his regular self. He also doesn't age visibly in the DC universe, or at the very least, he definitely ages at a slower pace than average human beings. His appearance hasn't undergone any changes from the period between World War II and the 1990s, and he is currently over 3,000 years old. Despite his age, he continues to work as a superhero, and we can certainly say that he is nearly invulnerable and immortal. Do his organs also stretch like his body? Not only does Plastic Man have a flexible body, but he also has rubber organs that can stretch within his body. He can shift these organs around in his body in order to prevent them from getting injured, especially when he has to dodge any attacks or weapons directed at him. In this way, Plastic Man has survived many situations, and he even decided against keeping his brain in his head. In this way, he was alive even when he was decapitated, since his crucial organs were safe in a different part of his body. Does Plastic Man have telepathic immunity? Plastic Man is one of those few superheroes to possess telepathic immunity, which essentially means that his brain is unaffected by any telepathic attacks. Since his brain is no longer organic after his accident, Plastic Man is invulnerable to any sort of mind control attempts. This makes him stronger than the likes of Superman and other Justice League members who are susceptible to mind control, and Plastic Man is also immune to Martian Mindhunter's telepathic attacks. Does Plastic Man have kids? Plastic Man has a son named Offspring, so we can certainly establish the fact that he can have children. Also known as Luke McDonough, Offspring was Plastic Man's illegitimate child with Angel McDonough. Offspring was initially mentioned in the JLA comic series, where Plastic Man asked Batman to help in scaring Offspring after he gets involved with a gang. Plastic Man further tells Batman that he had decided to run away after he learned that he was going to become a father because of his own issues with his own father. He was skeptical about being able to raise a child, and he was also shocked when he learned that he was able to have kids in the first place. However, Plastic Man eventually got in touch with his son, and it was later established that he had a good relationship with Offspring after Batman advised him to get in touch with him. While Plastic Man could father a child, Offspring did not gain any of his father's superpowers at birth, but he later received his powers after using a weaker version of the acid that helped Plastic Man to gain his powers. What are some of his major weaknesses? While Plastic Man's physiology was his greatest strength, he was vulnerable to heat and only functioned optimally at regular temperatures. He could still survive in extremely high or low temperatures as long as the change was gradual, but a sudden change turned his body into a completely solid or liquid form. He was essentially vulnerable to heat, and an intense heat vision attack had once melted his entire body. To sum it up, Plastic Man is certainly one of the most iconic superheroes in the DC universe, and he has a wide range of impressive powers as well. He also has quite an interesting origin story, as he started out as a criminal and eventually dedicated his life to crime fighting and joining hands with the Justice League. He has also captured the audience's attention with his strange physiology and malleable body, and we can't wait to see how this character develops in future DC story arcs. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe to never miss out on any of our videos. Until next time, have a good one and be safe.